O'Krongly, and I'm a potter in part because of the process, the ability to take a lump of clay and use my hands to transform it into something both beautiful and useful is almost magical in a way. And beyond that, the creative problem solving that happens when you're working in 3 dimensions and working with such a responsive material are all things that keep me coming back into the studio. But I'd say the thing that I value most is the connections that I can make with the people who use my work. And I have this unique window into their lives and into their homes, and I can put a little bit of the things I'm thinking about on the pieces that I make, but then they bring their own meanings and their own ideas, and it's that blending of concepts that keeps me so excited as a maker. I really like crisp transitions, so between the lip and the body of the cup and between the foot and the body of the cup, I really enjoy that separation of space. I wish that I still had some of my notebooks from high school and college because I would encase everything in little drawings and bubbles and doodles, and I feel like I've still retained that in the work that I do now. So I think the moment I knew I wanted to continue to be involved in ceramics was my senior year of undergraduate school. I went to visit Linda Christensen with 3 other clay students from my college, and she spent an entire afternoon with us just talking about her life in clay and the struggles that she'd had and how she built up the amazing studio space that she had, and she gave us demos. I mean, it was just kind of an amazing afternoon, and I knew then that giving and warm community was something that I really wanted to have in my life long term. So the thing that I love most about clay is that it can be absolutely anything. It can look hard or soft. It can be full of volume or look really heavy and dense. And I think that sense of possibility is just so exciting to me and is something that I always want to keep pursuing when I'm in the studio. So this cup now is ready to get the first layer of slip. And when I'm thinking about these cup forms, I'm actually thinking about them. They originated upside down, and I'm really inspired by things around food production and energy use and climate change. Those are kind of 3 big ideas that I'm constantly thinking about. And so this cup for me represents a cooling tower. And I like kind of these little plays that can happen with shape where maybe you don't quite know what that shape is, but through using it, you may discover some little hidden gems in there. And in terms of the illustrations, they're a much less intensive piece for me to work on. So I can work through some more ideas on a cup form than if I'm working on a larger platter shape. So it's a great place to sketch and play. In terms of the mug form, I think that it fills this kind of unique niche in the ceramic world because it's something that is so often used. So you'll sit down with your cup of coffee in the morning or a cup of afternoon tea, and I find it's a really intimate space to be working with. So for me, it's a place where I can play a little bit more in terms of the surface on this smaller scale, and there is the ability to rotate it around and think about the entire 360 degrees of that cup or mug. So it's a place for play, and it's a place to work through ideas, and it's also an intimate space to enter someone's life. It's sort of my tendency anyways to do things that are more crisp. And I've tried to work loosely before, and it just doesn't work. So where I'm loose is with the slip. So one of the challenges with earthenware is that the surface can be kind of flat. And through this process of varying the slip layers, I can get more depth in the surface. So something that I've found really inspiring for me in the studio in the last couple of years is listening to podcasts. So I often have podcasts going in the studio, and I feel like that really feeds into my practice. So I often will hear things that'll spark a new idea for a surface design, and it just keeps my mind active and engaged while I'm in the studio. And I think another thing that's been really helpful for me lately is I've developed a love of flower gardening. And so getting outside and just digging around in the dirt really clears my head, and I feel like makes me ready to get back into the studio. So this cup here is ready for the decoration. And when I look at these blank pieces in my studio, I feel kind of a sense of panic because there's just nothing to go from. So what I've developed, and a lot of people use this as a template system. So I've got some examples here of how a template could work. So this is my inspiration image here. So I love to look on the internet for funny pictures of animals, or friends will send me amazing pictures that they've taken. I like to go visit farms in person and take photos, but I have tons of photos to pull from. And then this is an example of the time I would spend doing a drawing that is inspired by that expression. This is a party goat. So I think one of the things I really like about working with animals in particular lately is that they have a certain level of innocence, and I can convey emotions through the animals that I maybe couldn't convey if I were using human forms. And for me, the humor is an important part of my work because I feel like some of the things that I'm thinking about in my studio are kind of dark and drab and dreary and sad. And so to have these happy, kind of elated, joyful animals is a really fun part of my process. And the way that the party animals came about recently is that my husband just got tenure, and we decided we really need more celebration in our life and we need to just enjoy this time. And so I started making goats that were toasting champagne and had party hats on, and it's something that I love that joy in these pieces, even though there is this dark undertone. So for me, that's an exciting place to exist. And so these are kind of my homage, hopefully, to happy animals that have had a good life. Maybe they're happy because they've lived through another day. And the clouds for me are actually methane clouds. So if you look at my cow pieces, a lot of the cows are farting or burping, and that is a way for me to talk about how much methane the animals that we consume produce. And so for me, all these animals are like dancing around in these methane clouds. So growing up in Alaska for me has been a really important part of my current body of work, and that largely has come from a trip I took up there in 2005. So I grew up there, I lived there until I was 16, and my husband and I decided to go back on a trip in 2005 because he'd never been. And I was so excited to show him Portage Glacier. And we'd gone there all the time when I was a kid, and it's this amazing glacial lake that is filled with these huge icebergs that have calved off this glacier. And we drove up there, and there was not an iceberg to be found in this glacial lake. And it was the first time that I realized in a concrete way that our climate was changing, and it was changing really fast. And that was the point when I knew I wanted to talk about those ideas in my work. And it took a few more years for that to happen, but my time in Alaska and just seeing that place evolve has really impacted the things I'm making today.